What's happening, everybody? It's your man Dame D NYDC. It's Two Mics Up, season 6. Feel free to follow Two Mics Up across all social media: IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Two Mics Up. And tonight, have a special guest joining me on the mic. Uh, that's truly special, and I mean that seriously, with the work and the things that she's really bringing to the forefront in an area that for most of us tends to go unlooked. We overlook it, it's unnoticed. But tonight's guest is really working to really educate us all, on how we can help in the area of special needs. So I really hope you take time to pay attention and tune in. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and bring to the other mic and bring to the stage tonight's guest, Jane Brobbey. Jane, how are you doing this evening?
I'm good, and yourself?
Hey, we're making it through, and I'm really excited, to be here. We had a chance to speak, before we got to this point, and I'm really glad that I did. And you're really doing some really amazing work, like I said, in really an area that so many of us really overlook. And before we jump into that, though, I always like to give our guests this a moment to really answer the question, who is Jane Brobbey? Like, who's the person, behind all of this magnificent work?
Well, I'm Jane Brobbey from Philadelphia. I grew up on the East Coast. I went to Howard University years and years ago. I got my bachelor's in computers there. I did that for about 3 years. Didn't like it. And then I went into teaching. So now I have my master's in teaching. I came back here after I went home, came back here, met my husband here, ended up staying here, married him, and we have 2 kids. And that's how I got into this.
Okay.
Look,
and that's a very, humble, introduction, to the things that, you're doing and things that you're working with. But, that journey, if you will, that you started, in your early careers and really led you to become an educator, but you also took that educator or that education to a whole new level, with, JB Solutions for Education. And, I want you to really, dive in if you could, how did JB Solutions for Education really come about?
Well, my second son was born in 2002. Mm-hmm. And he was diagnosed with autism in 2004.
Wow.
And so that was about 18 years ago.
Okay.
And it was really heartbreaking to my family because my husband and I didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to help him. And there weren't that many resources like there are today.
Right.
And, we would just stay up at night trying to figure out, well, how can we help him? He was non-speaking. He was sick a lot. Just the school system was not much help. Oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And as soon as you come in the door and you're a child that doesn't speak, they just hand you this notebook with a bunch of pictures on it and to help you with communication. But my son wasn't interested in those pictures.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time picking him up off the floor. He had an IEP, but there was no individual for, there was no, okay, here's this child. Let's figure out what to do for this child.
Right.
So what they would do, it was just like a big paintbrush. And I think the biggest issue, that was one of his biggest issues, was that and so with the other children too,
right,
that they didn't really individualize and work on these learning styles for
Mm-hmm.
these kids.
Right.
And so basically it made it difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so we didn't know
Yeah.
about, I
Yeah.
really didn't know about learning styles for a special needs child.
Right.
And so, I was just kind of going through it was like being in a big fog,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
because nobody was really helping me.
Right.
And I was depending on the school system, and they really weren't telling me the truth.
Mm.
He got ready to go to kindergarten, and they're like, well, he needs to be in MR class, which is what they called it back then,
Okay.
because he scored below a 70. But how could he be scoring below a 70? There's not even an IQ test in this country right now for a person that doesn't speak. Now, I know
Oh
someone is
wow.
somewhere designing it,
Okay.
and you can't just assume that because they're not talking that they're not thinking.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what it was.
Mm.
But he had autism, and the biggest thing about autism is people say, "Oh, the child's got behavior problems," but it's not behavior problems.
Right.
It's medical. Most of the time,
Mm.
it's medical,
Mm.
and the doctors, the regular mainstream doctors, really don't have a handle on it.
Right.
So, we went to a lot of different natural health
It,
doctors. We tried a lot of different things.
right.
We went through with a group. He had chelation, which they take all the metals out of your system,
Okay.
and all the children with him learned to talk, but he did not. So
Okay.
that wasn't his issue. you
Okay.
know. But
Okay.
the metals were gone, so that helped.
That was something, right? That was a start.
Right, right. So we just had to move on from there. Um, and so the years went on, and he finally got into a special needs school, which was run by the public school system,
Okay.
called Independent Help. And the reason they put him in there was because he was, quote, a behavior problem.
Oh.
And when we got there, they said, because uh, they said, we don't see any of these behaviors that the
Mm-hmm.
school said they saw. Okay.
Okay.
So that was a red flag and letting us know that the mainstream situation that he was in, they didn't know what they were doing. you know.
And that sounds like the underlying, and excuse me for cutting you up, but even then, like, has the education system caught up, if you will, with changes and advances and just being able to identify? No. Okay, so this has been a problem, you know all the way through, and continues to be a problem then.
Mm-hmm. It continues to be a problem. And so um, I think I told you, you can walk into the building and just feel the caring and how they felt about these children. And,
Right.
it was just something about it, because
Right.
my oldest son and my husband, we went there for a couple events, and he was like, oh, wow, the school is great. And then
Mm-hmm.
2 years later, they said, oh, he's got to go
Wow. What?
because they shut the building down,
Wow.
construction.
Mm.
So he had to go back in the mainstream situation. And that was not good at all. And I was constantly fighting with the teachers.
Wow.
And so then, okay, so that was for middle school. Then he went to high school, and he was going to ninth grade. We were very excited because he was going to have the teacher that he'd had at the special needs school was going to be with him, and he's taking these aids, and everybody knew him, and we were all happy
Okay.
because this is going to work out. We thought
Right. 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 Right.
because it was a setup. He was going to have the
Mm.
aides, he was going to have the teachers. It was a whole setup.
Right.
Well, we got there. Ninth grade was excellent. It went very
Okay.
well. He learned a lot. He was doing all these things. He went through employ. He was doing well with that. And then they came to us at the beginning of 10th grade and said, he can't go to employ. He's got too many behavior problems. I said, from where?
From where? Right.
And they took away his aides. Okay, they took
Wow.
away the aide that he knew. I gave the teacher a hard time, and she said they were in there harassing him and Kwame every day.
Oh my
Her.
goodness. Right. Right.
So at the end of the school year, my husband, who was constantly traveling, he said, Jane, He doesn't look happy. We got to do something else.
Right.
So I said, okay. So at that point, I had already started him in the middle of school year. He started what's called spelling training
Okay.
because it was nonverbal. And this is another thing you need to watch out for if you're a parent of a special needs child. We started this, and the first day we went, they had a board there, and he's spelling all these words for this person,
Okay.
teacher kind of person, the
Mm-hmm.
practitioner. And I'm sitting there, call me, where'd you learn to spell all these words? I'm going to say that because remember now, this school system's been telling me for 10 years.
Right. That is a problem.
It's functioning below a 70, and, he just is not, And so he's smiling and spelling. I was like, oh my God. So, he went into the end of the year with, I know stuff and nobody's working with me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we pulled him out of there, and he did homebound for a while. Then COVID came, and, I was doing different things. And then somebody said, well, why don't, Jane, you seem to know a lot about this special needs stuff.
Right. Right.
You need to come on and get it to other people.
Right.
And so I was like, I don't know. I don't think I know that much. I don't think so. Just with my own child.
Right.
Then I started to think about it, and I started to say I did know some stuff. And that's how JB Solutions was born.
And that's awesome, Jane. I mean, it's a hard story to hear.
It's a hard
But
story to tell.
and I could tell, just in your body language, your face, just the things, having to relive these experiences. But I think it's important. That's why, I'm really excited, and I'm glad to have you come on, because I think this is, like I said, we overlook this, because some people are not affected by it, but this is real life things happening to real life people like yourself, and really need an outlet. And that's why I thought this was a great conversation and story to share. And more importantly, though, now that, you've gone through and started, JB Solutions for Education, what would you say is the overall mission and vision then, of your work when you're working to help others and help educate others?
Okay, mainly to help parents avoid falling in the pitfalls that I fell into. Because a lot of times I just didn't have information.
Right.
And the big thing in the spellers world is presuming competence. I didn't know that. I had no idea that people would automatically assume that a person who didn't speak or a person who had a disability was dumb.
Okay.
But that's where it is, and that's what they say. You assume, you take the child wherever they are. If they're 10 years old, then you teach them like they're a 10-year-old and work from there. You don't just say, okay, well, here's your third grade stuff,
And I'm curious to know, like, we talked about, the education system, and you being an educator now on that side, have you been able to have, real dialogue and conversation with educators who are in the system to maybe work to bring a program or bring about change, for others, like your son, so that other parents, coming behind you are not stuck in the same or similar situations?
Well, yes. And there are some that understand where I'm coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And there are some that do not. And also it's also a matter of pocketbook.
I hear you on that.
Money from the school system, because when you pull in the spellers world, they often have to have a communication partner.
Okay.
And the school system say they don't want to pay for that.
Wow.
Now, when you have a child that comes to school that doesn't hear, we give them cochlear implants.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we make them learn how to sign, and there's no question that they can't think.
Right.
But because a child cannot use his or her vocal cords, oh well, you must be really, and might make noises, then it's just assumed that they're dumb. That assumption is made very quickly.
That is a terrible stigmatism, or to apply a stigma on someone, without really diving in and doing the work, if you will, to find out more, to do more. And like you say, children, who can't hear or who may have, issues with their vision. I don't want to say we afford, but they're afforded more opportunity. They don't have a stigma or an assumption attached to them automatically. And
Yeah.
that's really mind-boggling. When you sit and you think about it and you listen to it. But in your journey too now, Jane, you know, as you've evolved and really started growing with, JB Solutions for Education, we talked, you're doing a lot more, and really stretching yourself. But, I want those who are listening who may be experiencing or know of a family member or a friend who may be experiencing something similar. What services, are you offering, maybe to the community and family and friends, that you've come in contact with so far through your work?
Well, they have a list of services.
Well, go ahead.
Yeah. I do help parents with IEPs. I know it's expensive to get an advocate.
Mm,
So what I do is I will review your IEP. We will sit down, your child's IEP. We will sit down, discuss it, decide what you think should be on it, and then we will come up with a plan for the school system for how you're going to approach them when you
okay.
go to that meeting, so you feel empowered. Um, we will sometimes, they have this present level of performance,
Mm-hmm.
and if you don't agree with that present level of performance, then we will have documentation to show that their present level of performance is not
Mm. Wow.
your child, and
Okay.
that they should be teaching such and such.
Okay.
We need to have a package for them when you go into that IEP meeting. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't put on it what you want, you're not signing. Goodbye.
Right. No, that's right. And these are great tools, though. And I mean, these are things that most people don't even know probably even exist, or is
I didn't
probably
know. I
right.
didn't know. I,
Mm,
I, I honestly didn't. I didn't sign a lot of IEPs. Um, you know, and it if you don't sign it, uh, most of the time the school is going to eventually give in because the state doesn't want to see any unsigned IEPs.
ah,
So you
okay.
have to be, just be strong and say, well, I don't agree with that.
Mm,
Come to some type of agreement with them, because
right.
they need your child to move on, and you need your child to move on.
No,
But
that's right.
they need to be teaching at the right level, and you need to make sure. And there
Mm,
are ways you can figure out if they're really doing, Now we know with special needs, they might not be all the way up to par,
right.
but they still shouldn't necessarily mean that you're still watering everything
Thing
down.
down. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And that's a great tidbit, to share. And I really have to ask, because I want to switch lanes for a minute, because there's that side, the work that you're putting in, you know not only for for yourself and your son, but for others. But I gotta, like, how do you find the energy, right? Like, where's the energy at for Jane, you know when you're down or whatever, but you continue to press on, and really give to others, when sometimes you personally, you might need it more than somebody else. Like, how do you
Well,
find that strength, and how do you balance it all?
well, I'm into some different things. I'm into politics.
Okay.
you know,
Okay.
I love to watch that stuff on TV. I used to do a lot of political meetings with my friends. Um, I watch comedy late at night sometimes.
Hmm.
I go out to dinner with friends. When I'm really frustrated, I have people I can call on the phone who will listen to me, so that helps a lot.
Right.
There is a group of moms whose children in this area have autism, and we meet periodically as when we can for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
My son has an attendant paid by Medicaid,
Okay.
and she keeps her hours flexible for me,
Nice.
so that I'm able to do different things.
Okay. Fair
A
enough.
lot of people don't know about that program,
Right.
but yeah, Medicaid will help you with that.
That's amazing.
Um, and I didn't get to finish. I started talking about the IEPs. Yes, I do a lot of tutoring for kids,
Mm-hmm.
students who regular education students. I work with them because they
Okay.
have their frustrations with the school system. Some
Mm.
of them have fallen behind because of COVID. I help
Wow.
them to get their grades up.
Okay.
I work with parents who are homeschooling their kids. They might just need me to come in once a week and work on different skills. I do homeschooling evaluations. Um, I help parents set up a curriculum when they want to do homeschooling, and maybe they don't want to follow a curriculum.
Right. Right. Right.
They might want to do different things, but they still want their kids to learn. There's so many different things you can do in homeschooling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just finished my book on homeschooling.
See that. Well, let's just go right into it because my next thing is there any specific books or anything that
Yeah, I
resources that
just
you can
finished
share?
this book on the camera
Let me go
on
ahead and
homeschooling.
give you the solo. Uh-huh.
Yep.
Okay.
And this book, one thing a lot of people don't really understand homeschooling,
Mm-hmm.
and in the beginning, I didn't either. But
Mm.
my son came to us and said, "Well, I want my high school diploma,"
Okay.
and my friend said, "Well, do you think he can do the work?" I said, "Yes." So she said, "Well, you can just homeschool him and get him through." So, he's just about done now. He's going to
All
have that
right.
diploma, and he's moving on to um, community college, hopefully next year. But
Okay.
some people don't believe in it because they think, oh, it's going to ruin your child's social life. Not really. There's so
No.
many activities out there. There's not as many activities for us because my son is not speaking. It's harder just to find them. But there are some out there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the book also talks about how you have to deschool your child. Don't just pull your child out of school and then take them home and say, okay, let's start.
Wow.
I
Okay.
see these posts on Facebook, where parents have just are frustrated
Right.
because they that's what they did,
Right.
and they don't have any breaks, and the
Mm-hmm.
child has to get used to a routine to sitting at home doing work, and you
Right.
should, so my book
Huge
talks about
change.
all kinds of ways to do deschooling. Figuring out
Wow.
what your child's learning style is. And a
Okay.
lot of time, a lot of times the school system, that's another problem. I know I talked at the beginning about it. They don't
Uh-huh.
teach the learning style.
Wow.
My son and a lot of other autistic kids, they don't learn well this way.
Right.
Like straight. They need things taught to them this way,
Right. Right.
and that's not. That's the administration wants to come to the classroom and see everybody doing the same thing.
Yeah. But there's
And
no there's no room for those who may learn differently. I mean, because we
exactly.
all interpret things, read things,
Mhm.
process things. We're all different. So sometimes change of style is really
Mhm.
important.
Yeah,
Mm.
that's very, very important.
Very important. Very important.
you
Uh,
know, and I know I talked about curriculum. You can teach without a curriculum or with a curriculum.
mm-hmm.
And homeschool kids go to college.
I know that's right.
hmm
Wow.
So, my book talks about that. There's also a quiz in my book about figuring out what your child's learning style is.
Okay. Well,
How
this
to
is
show
really
at the end of the year that your child has made progress. Doing a unit study, that's a
mm,
big thing. And
mm,
especially if you have 3 children who you're homeschooling and you do a unit study, that means everybody's might be studying whales or science or
right.
something,
Right.
but they all do the reading and the math with it, but it's just at different levels. It
Mm,
makes it easier.
a lot easier.
Um,
I love it.
Also, of course, tailoring your homeschooling approach to your special needs child.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh.
But I love it because Jane, you really bringing, the soup, the nuts, to really, and it's important, we say it lovingly, but it's really important, you're really encompassing a lot of the groundwork that so many other parents and family members need to be able to support, a special needs, family member or a person. And these are things that like I said, we take for granted, this listening in my mind, I'm going, oh yeah, duh. But again, we overlook these things, because
Yeah, yeah.
we're not dealing with them, sometimes hands on or day to day. And I really appreciate you taking the time out today. We've already we're already here to the back end of today's conversation. But I want to thank you, Jane, for your dedication and your work, and kudos, to you and your son, and the magnificent strides that he's making. Congratulations to him as he moves forward, in his high school and college career. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of Two Mics Up. I'm your man, Dame DNYDC. You can find us here, season 6, Mogul TV Global Network, #1 network for positive programming. If you feel like you want to follow me, you can follow me, Damon Cunningham, at Dame DNYDC across all social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter. And if you want to go ahead and continue to follow the show, go ahead and follow Two Mics Up. Follow us across all social media, IG, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Catch season 6 on the Mogul Global TV Network. And until next week, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go ahead and do like we always do. I'm going to ask you all to stay safe, stay blessed. Mics out.
007.